Oshkosh Media is government programming on GovTV, community programming on Life TV, and community radio on Oshkosh FM 101.9.
Welcome to the City Manager's Report, a look at city updates and a preview of the next Oshkosh Common Council meeting agenda.
Hello and welcome to the City Manager's Report. I'm your host, Andy Radig, and I'm joined today by your City Manager for the City of Oshkosh, Mr. Mark Roloff. And thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Andy.
All right. Well, we've got a lot to talk about today. We'll be doing the first half of the program talking about some municipal news updates from Oshkosh. And we'll come back after a break and we'll talk about some agenda highlights from the June 23rd Common Council meeting. So Mark, let's just dive right into it. The first item that we're looking at, an update from some of the COVID-19 things that are happening. It looks like there's been a rise in cases locally in the 20 to 29 age group.
Yeah, the Winnebago County Health Department, which is our health department, keeps track of these things, and there was a noticeable uptick in cases in general, and then specifically in the 20 to 29 age group since Memorial Day. So it's showing that some people aren't doing social distancing, and that's obviously a concern. And I know, younger people may feel that they're more resilient and everything, and I would suggest that, yeah, they're probably right about them being more resilient than other people, but they can become carriers of the coronavirus, and that can be spread to their parents, other family members, grandparents, elderly. They're not immune to spreading it, and that's a real concern. So we've been doing a lot of recent promotion of continuing to do social distancing. If you go out, please keep that distance. And the virus is still here. The cases have gone up fivefold in the past month, and that's a concern. So we're hoping that people will heed this advice and stay away from social gatherings that can spread the disease.
Mm-hmm. Even though many things are opening up, that doesn't mean that the virus is going away. So people need to be mindful of that.
Right, and meanwhile, we have to take a look at that from our standpoint of operating city services. While some people say, well, I want to remain open, I know a lot of establishments have opened with some great deal of restrictions to protect their customers as well as their employees themselves. And City Hall is not immune to that. City Hall remains closed at least through the July 4th weekend. So we'll be providing more information on that, but we do need to keep that closed for the time being, and we'll make some decisions later on as we reopen.
Okay. And keep an eye on the city's website for updates on City Hall and other updates regarding this. Some other cancellations that have come around, the Tuesday night concert series at Live at the Leach has been canceled for these very reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's something we had to do. A lot of people were not happy that we canceled the July 4th fireworks as well as the parade. Again, that is an opportunity for people to get together. So the Live at the Leach was just the next in a series of things that we felt we needed to cancel. So those are things that the city itself is canceling because those are events that we ourselves put on.
All right, and then there's some other community events that have been canceled as well. Life Fest, the Winnebago County Fair. So they just kind of keep adding to the list, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, those are Winnebago County facilities, but they recognize too that this issue is not going away, and rather than run the risk of having exposure, they're just canceling the events, and I certainly understand it. I don't like it any more than anybody. I mean, a lot of people love these events. Life Fest is an event that attracts people from throughout the world.
Sure.
And it breaks my heart to think of so many businesses that are being negatively impacted by this, but we still need to get a handle on this, and I think these groups are acting responsibly by canceling these events.
Okay, right. Well, and continuing with the same topic, the city now has a updated website with a listing of city services that may be impacted or what their current service levels are with regards to the situation. So it's you're seeing it right there. It's the COVID-19 webpage with some public health updates from the county and some the current situation from there, and then city service updates, and then that also leads you to this page where you have online services and forms that are available from different departments.
Yeah, the council had asked us to provide a centralized location. So we had already had the online services, but just in general, what's the status of the facility? So when we do make a decision on City Hall, if we're going to reopen it after the July 4th weekend, this is where you'll be able to find that information. We do a lot to provide services in an online format, and that's what I love about this page. Every single department, very common things that you go to. A lot of these existed long before the COVID-19 emergency, but we probably took it for granted. There is some social aspect that we enjoy to going out and doing little transactional businesses, but if you can get it done safely without having to go into a building and interact with people, you're just better off that way. So certainly we want to make that available to people. So check out that online services. I think you'll be very pleased and maybe even a little surprised at what services we make available to you as a member of the public. So, and if anybody has suggestions on something, let us know and we'll see if we can expand these services.
Sure. And I know I work with that webpage and I'm seeing updates coming through all the time. So we keep adding things as we get them. Also on there's a temporary use permit that's available as a link through that website as well. And that would allow outdoor seating to be expanded at bars and restaurants.
We've done a lot to reach out to our bars and restaurants that took a huge hit.
Right.
And we want to be able to help them expand their footprint so they can create more social distance. So we've been plugging that with a lot of our bars and restaurants and haven't had a huge response. We've had a little bit, but we want to let people know that still exists. And then similarly, GoEDC, the Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation, we've worked with them to create a couple loan programs that are available through GoEDC, and we encourage people to take advantage of that or the Winnebago County Rapid Relief Loan. Every one of these can be reached by contacting Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation. Don't worry about one which you may or may not be able to apply for. Just give GoEDC a call and they're happy to help you navigate through this to get you matched up to the right program that's available that best meets your needs.
Great. Some good news for Go Transit. They've had some additional funding become available.
This is all part of the Federal CARES Act fund. It's primarily for purposes of helping out through the COVID-19 emergency, but Go Transit is going to be the recipient of $4.5 million of funds that can be used to fund a variety of things. The first and most immediate one would be any services that we have that are impacted by COVID-19. Loss of revenue because we have less ridership, costs that we've incurred to make the ride as safe as possible. A lot of these video you see here was all pre-COVID, so we've done a lot of things to make it safer for both residents, our passengers, as well as our drivers. So those things will be there. But there's also some overdue capital projects that will also be funded through this program. New buses that will make it for a safer ride for people, as well as some catch up in buses that have been long overdue that can use some of these updated features. And then the possibility of renovating our transit center to make that safer for our passengers so they can maybe get bus passes at the transit center rather than having to go over to the transit offices, which may or may not be on your bus route.
Okay, so a lot of benefits directly to the users of the transit service there.
Oh, absolutely. And
That's
the
great.
Transit Board has already reviewed these, and they've given our Transportation Director, Jim Collins, sort of the green light to their endorsement of his approach to how we're going to spend these funds, and we'll share that with council in the coming weeks.
Okay, very good. Another item having to do with finances. Oftentimes people will refinance their home. They try to take advantage of a better interest rate. It sounds like the city might be doing something kind of similar here.
That's a great example because a lot of people right now are refinancing their homes. We don't have the same flexibility necessarily the homeowner does, but as bond issues mature, usually about after 7 or 8 years, you can do what's called a refunding. It's sort of like a refinance, refi type of thing. And we did that. And with the refinancing or the refunding we just did for our general fund borrowing itself, we're going to be saving over $1 million in interest costs over the remaining life of these bonds.
That's great. Wow. So how does this impact taxpayers?
Well, the big benefit is that these bonds say that we will use our full taxing authority, so we will tax as much as it's necessary to pay these bonds off, which is pretty daunting for a taxpayer. What this $1 million savings does is that directly will go towards preventing our levy from going up to fund this extra interest. And so as time goes on, we'll achieve savings that the taxpayers would normally have to pay for. So we're very excited that we're able to pass that on really directly to taxpayers. This will be an increase that you won't see as we go down the road.
Well, that's excellent news. That's very good news. So we always look for things like that for sure. I see also, talking about budgeting and that, the first budget workshop is coming up on July 8th from 5 to 8 p.m.
Once we hit mid-year, we get an idea of how our finances are at mid-year, and the departments are already in the process of preparing their capital budgets for actually the next 5 years, from 2021 through 2025 and beyond. And we're meeting with departments right now. Our goal is to start the capital planning process a little earlier. So our first budget workshop will be devoted to debt service, because debt is what drives a lot of these capital projects. It funds those projects. So we're going to go through that with council to explain how we are from a debt standpoint, as well as what some of our capital needs are. And we've got a lot of them out there. So council's going to be prioritizing a lot of that, and we're going to be seeking their advice on generally how they want this to go. So we'll have a draft capital plan for them to look at, and really focusing on the financing so we can get it done right.
And just for folks too, just so they have a little background too, these budget workshops, there will be additional ones down the road as well, but this just happens to be the first one.
This is the first of what I estimate to be 6 budget workshops.
Okay.
3 before the budget's submitted, and once the budget's submitted, then the council has a 2-day long workshops, and then a final workshop towards the end. So yeah, you'll be seeing a lot of budget workshops in the coming months.
Okay, all right, more to come on that. We also have the Oshkosh Mini Mural Project has been unveiled in downtown Oshkosh. So that's kind of an exciting project.
It is a wonderful project. It just debuted this last Saturday, June 6th. There are 20 original pieces of art with all local artists that are on display throughout downtown Oshkosh. I encourage you to come down and take a look at it. It's a great way to socially distance and get outside and see stuff. These are the examples of some of the artwork, and they're all over the board in terms of what they are. Just a little, a little hip, a little old-fashioned. It has a lot of different genres of art. This is a project of the city's Public Art and Beautifications Committee. I really appreciate their support and the community support for local artists. And as you said, the map is of the arts online, but the map's also available of where these are. And this is from Visit Oshkosh, the website for our Convention and Visitors Bureau. Shows you where these are. Come on downtown, maybe go to dinner socially distant at one of our great downtown restaurants, and then walk off dinner and take a look at this mural art. It's really wonderful, and I'm excited about it.
And we've been promoting it also through our Oshkosh media, social media sites, so you can watch there for maps and more information about it. Another thing in the city here that is a gem is the Menominee Park Zoo, which is now open.
We're successfully able to open it up and keep it socially distant. We're allowing no more than 50 people at a time. There's been a little backup sometimes, but we're enabling families to be able to go in there and do their thing to enjoy the park and learn about different animals. And we've got all the socially distant lines that are all set up and everything. And the park is open. Menominee Park Zoo is open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and that's daily. And I encourage people to go there because one of the other things is through the Tom and Penny Herrenberg Foundation, it's free. So
free admission.
You can't beat that. So come on down to the Menominee Park Zoo and enjoy all that we have to offer.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great thing for folks to take advantage of for sure. So I think, Mark, we'll take a break at this point. We've gone through our municipal news updates, and we'll come back after this break to talk about some agenda highlights from the upcoming June 23rd Common Council meeting. So stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Oh, it's gonna be great.
I think it goes around.
Let's go. We gotta get you in practice.
And it's set!
Holding a phone takes precious attention away from the road. That's why handheld cell phone use is now illegal in Wisconsin work zones, and fines start at $40. Driving deserves your undivided attention. It's about safety for workers and for all motorists. So when you see orange cones, please put down the phone. The Wisconsin DOT urges you to help us achieve 0 deaths on Wisconsin roads.
And welcome back to the City Manager's Report. I'm your host, Andy Radig. For the second half of the program, we'll be taking a look at some agenda highlights for the upcoming June 23rd Common Council meeting. And that meeting can be seen live on Oshkosh Media Gov TV. So, Mark, it looks like in the agenda, the first item is a presentation to Council about a West 9th Avenue reconstruction project.
This is one of our major public works projects for the year. It's certainly one of the largest street projects we've had. And the reason is because we're doing what I call urbanizing the street. This is a lot of property that used to be in the town of Oshkosh, or excuse me, the town of Algoma, that's now becoming moving into the city of Oshkosh. And now we need to urbanize it to get it to urban standards and meet some of our goals for the our bike and pedestrian plan, as well as our transportation plan. So this highlighted area here shows it. It's west of Oakwood Road and goes out to what's Linden Oaks Drive west of town. We've had a lot of requests over the last couple of years about when are you going to fix the road, when are you going to put sidewalks in, things of that nature. So we've got 4 options that were being kicked around by our Traffic and Parking Advisory Committee, and they struggled with it and go into council with basically 4 options without a recommendation.
Okay.
But all of the options are 48-foot wide streets. That's the back of curb to the back of curb. But it's what's in between and how you paint the lines that are really going to decide this. And it really is which combination of parking and bike lanes and turn lanes do you put in. And that's really going to be what ultimately determines what's going to happen here. I think staff is concerned that while we know we need to put in bike lanes because that's in our bike and pedestrian plan, and down the road as traffic increases out there, we will very much need turn lanes. But in the meantime, I'm sure a lot of people are going to see their driveways shorten up between what they have now and what they will have when when the street and the sidewalk goes all the way back to the right-of-way line, which is going to shorten their front yard quite a bit. It's always been city property, but they've never known it that way. So that's going to be the real struggle, and I know a lot of neighbors are probably asking for parking on the street because their driveways are going to be shorter and things like that. So we've got to balance that all out.
Sure.
Council's going to have a tough decision because I know some residents are going to be out there and have some opinions on it. So those are the three things: parking, bike lanes, and turn lanes. And we have to figure out how and what you fit in that 48 feet.
Okay. And as a former resident of that area, I know that'll be an exciting project. So we've got another item. It looks like we have some sewer system, sanitary sewer, and some water line improvements.
Yeah, this is the borrowing for our sewer and water projects for 2020. We talked earlier in the show about some of the savings we've achieved with our general obligation borrowing. Well, these are the utility improvements that are done that you pay for with your water and your sewer rates. We will be opening those bids that morning of the meeting, and then our financial consultant will be reporting to council and making a recommendation. We got really good rates a couple weeks ago with our general obligation and our stormwater debt. We're hoping to continue that. The rates have probably upticked a tiny bit, but I think we're going to get some very competitive rates, which will then save our ratepayers a good deal of money in the future because our borrowing costs are going to go down. So we're excited about that.
Okay, great. And then we have another item, awarding a bid for a public works contract. This is a new term for me, Mark, inflow and infiltration.
This is about lining sanitary sewers to address that very issue. Inflow and infiltration is something where water, clear water, seeps into our sanitary sewer system from a variety of sources. And I could talk to you all day about this, but I know it's a real issue, and since I've been city manager, we've been putting about $1 million annually into this program, and the idea behind it, at least with the sewer lining, is that we know that various cracks in our sewer pipe will get groundwater to leak into our sewer system, and then that's going down to the treatment plant. So we're trying to avoid that, and this is one element of our inflow and infiltration prevention program. We call it I&I for short. And the idea is we want to get groundwater and other clear water out of our sewer system.
And so we're trying to avoid, basically, why does it matter if other water is getting in there?
Yeah, you'd think, well, clear water going to the sewer plant, what's the problem? The problem is we have to treat every gallon of sewage the same. We can't figure out, we can't check it out at the entrance of the treatment plant. Are you clear water or not? So we're putting chemicals into our sewage treatment facility based on the flow that isn't necessarily based on sewage flow. It's based on rain flow, and that is a very expensive proposition. We are saving, a lot of money, hundreds of thousands annually, if we can avoid treating clear water. And so while we've been putting a lot of money in the last few years, we're going to reap those benefits for decades on. So it's a very cost-effective program, which is good for the environment and good for the ratepayers as well.
Makes sense. All right, and then we're looking at a new fire department training center.
This is something that the fire department has had in their plans for quite a while. We had a staffing study that recognized that training facilities that are located out of the city, which is where a lot of our training takes place, requires us to pay overtime to off-duty firefighters because we can't send our on-duty firefighters out of town. This will enable us to have a centralized location for training, and if there's a call and they're in town, at least they can jump on the trucks just like they normally do, as opposed to just paying somebody overtime to go out of town for training. So this will save us a lot of money. The Plan Commission took this issue up. There were some concerns from the neighbors, which is legitimate. The first feature we want to put in is this training tower, but this is over on North Sawyer Street. It's kind of between West High School and Lourdes High School. So this is an example what the tower would look like. So obviously this is an open field. This isn't where it's going to be located. It's on the edge of a residential area. And so we need to put in some landscaping, and there's already some good landscaping there that we think can shield it from the neighbors, as well as making sure that we do other things that keep it less impactful on the public. And we want to be respectful of that. So the zone changes on the agenda, and also the process to go through waiving formal bidding processes to acquire this. It's a specialty type of device that this training tower is. And then down the road, as we get funds available, then we'll rehabilitate the building for the training facility. But the first step is the training tower.
Mm-hmm. And so we are taking consideration that this is in a residential neighborhood and adjusting accordingly.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, very good. So a couple of items on the agenda relating to the Fire Department Training Center. Another item that we have coming up too is amending the membership of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. It looks like we're not adjusting the voting size of it, but just making some tweaks to it.
Yeah, the mayor had a discussion after the committee was created at the last meeting, and to provide some flexibility, allowing up to 3 non-residents to be members of the committee, and then adding 3 non-voting members to get our school district, the university, and some other nonprofit input. That we need their input, but we don't necessarily want to grant them voting rights on that committee. So that's an improvement that we're looking at making, and I think that was something that council had discussed at the last meeting, so now we got it in place for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Then we have an item also taking a look at, this has to do with special assessments?
Well, it does, but for us it's more about special assessments. But the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, several communities, including Oshkosh, asked them to take a look at some of the challenges that people were making to transportation utility fees as an option. In our case, an option to replace special assessments with a transportation utility fee. We felt all along that we had the legal right to do it. This legal opinion essentially establishes and confirms that what we've already known, that we do have the right to and the ability to create a transportation utility and create a fee. There's some advice there on what things may work better than others, and we're certainly going to take a look at those. But now that the league has come out with this advice, we're bringing it back to council to have a good discussion about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. And then we have another item looking at talking a little bit more about community conversations on race and equity in Oshkosh.
This was an issue that came up at our last meeting when the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee was coming up, also in response to the public outcry over the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and starting a community conversation so we can talk to our residents and say, what can we do better to address racial and social justice issues in our community. Chief Smith and I have reached out to members of the community to listen to what they have to say and maybe come up with some ideas that maybe we haven't thought of ourselves. And I think we have to be open to listen to different perspectives and different ideas. Diversity of ideas really helps make a better decisions for our community, and we need that input. And so we're reaching out, and then I think we're also going to use our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee to get other input. So we're excited about this.
Mm-hmm. It's always good to have those conversations.
We have to keep them going, Andy.
Okay, very good. Well, Mark, I think that's about all the time that we have today. We've gone through quite a bit. Again, the Oshkosh Common Council meeting is coming up on Tuesday, June 23rd at 6 p.m. You can watch that live on Spectrum Channel 10, GovTV, UVerse Channel 99, and streaming on YouTube and OshkoshMedia.org. You can also listen to it on Oshkosh FM 101.9, which is also online and on the TuneIn Radio app for mobile devices. And just thanks again for watching the City Manager's Report. We'll be back again in 3 weeks with another new program. Take care, everyone.